How do we know God's voice? Knowing someone's voice and listening to them usually takes trust. When I was younger and played football, no matter where I was on the pitch or how many people were there, I could always hear my dad's voice and what he was saying to me. Partially because he was so loud, but also because I knew his voice and trusted it. And because of that, I listened and did what he said, usually. And it's the same with a dog. There might be a lot of noise in the park and people shouting various things, but they know their owner's voice and they trust it. So they'll probably listen and do what they say. And I believe it's the same with God. If we trust God, then we need to know his voice. There's a famous story in the book of 1 Samuel where God calls Samuel 3 times. And each time Samuel goes to his mentor Eli and asks what he wants, not recognising that it was God's voice. And after the third time, Eli realised that it was actually God who was calling him. And if he called again, Samuel was to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." This is quite a funny story about how easy it is to not recognise God's voice, even when it's audible. But we see how important it is to know God's voice. It says in the passage that Samuel did not yet know the Lord, but learning how to from Eli transformed his life. And Samuel went on to do wonderful things as a prophet, including anointing David as the future king. And when I was in my last year at uni and I was wondering what to do afterwards, I felt a little nudge that I should pursue a gap year with Rain Ministries down in Bicester. Now I've got a lot of ideas, some good, some bad, but there's a difference between a good idea and God's idea. So I took a couple of months to pray over it and only told a select few people about the possibility of moving down south, just so that I could be sure that it wasn't just a thought I had, that it was actually God's plan, and it was God that was calling me there. And after a few months, I believed that it was God, so I pursued it. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions that I've ever made. And from then, I've taken similar steps and big decisions to make sure that I know that it's God that's calling me, that it's God's voice. And I can honestly say that being able to discern God's voice and knowing what that is has made my life so much richer. And I believe that's true for everyone. I think everyone has the ability to communicate to God, to hear from God, and to receive a calling from God. So like Samuel, we need to develop the ability to hear God's voice. But more than that, when we do, we need to act on it. Because God is all powerful and his plan is perfect. And I promise you that when you do listen to God and when you do what he says, your life will become so much richer for it. So I encourage you all to speak to God and to learn how to hear God's voice and to act on that. Find out what his calling is for your life. I hope that meets you all well. Speak soon.